right, welcome to another episode of Catholic Mindset, where we create Catholic content for Catholics. Today, we have a guest who has been on the show before, so we're welcoming you back. We have Fernando Figueredo. He was here first talking about his research on Apostle Paul in Spain. He wrote a book about that. So that was pretty cool. And now he's back. We're going to talk about his research that he's been doing on Garabandal, Our Lady of Mount Carmel. We're going to talk about her past apparitions and those messages and what does that mean and what's happening now and anything else that he wants to share with us. So Fernando, welcome back on the show. How are you doing today?
Thank you so much, Alejandro. I love being with you. I think this is a great format for you to spread the word. And Catholic Mindset, I think is great. So thank you for having me.
Thank you. So let's dive right in. What is Our Lady of Mount Carmel, Garabandal? Tell us.
Well, so this is one of the least known apparitions of the Virgin Mary. Interestingly, that it happened about 50, a little bit closer to 60 years ago. And at the beginning, some of the apparitions and some of the things that were taking place, the local bishop wasn't too crazy about understanding what was going on. So he sort of put a hold on his local archdiocese, researching the apparitions. And so it's become not that well known. And as I'll explain throughout the presentation, the church and the bishop, they're going to wait for the main miracle. The main miracle has been prophesied before they go ahead and give it the stamp of approval. And even though there have been thousands of witnesses that saw the many apparitions over the 4.5-year period, the church has decided to just hold off and not go full speed and give it the full approval. They do, and several popes, the last two popes, Pope Paul VI, John Paul II, and now Francis, they do approve of the message that came out of Garabandal, but they haven't given full approval to the apparition. So that happens, that's normal, that the church will wait until such a event takes place where a miracle is clear before they give it the full approval. So Garabandal takes place actually in a small village in the north part of Spain. The village at the beginning, when these apparitions were taking place, only had about 300 residents, and it's way up north by the Cantabria mountains, what's referred to many times as the Pyrenees of Spain, and it's nestled in between some very large mountains. So very similar place as to where the Virgin appeared in Fatima. Fatima was a very small town, and she appeared to 3 shepherds. Here she appears to 4 young girls, ages 11 to 12 years old. And the girls, the way the apparitions began, they actually began, the very first one was with the Archangel Michael, who the girls were playing just outside the village. And all of a sudden, one of them, Conchita, falls into ecstasy, drops on her knees, looks straight up into the sky. And the other 3 girls are saying, "What happened?" And within seconds, each one of them also fall into ecstasy, looking straight up. And they're looking at what they refer to as the Archangel Michael. And Michael first looked at them and greeted them, and then they just kind of stare at each other, and then the Archangel left. The next day, they were again playing, and the Archangel appeared to them. And he told them that within a few days, they were going to see the Virgin Mary. Now, this happened in June 18th of 1961, when the Archangel first appeared to them. And just 2 weeks later, on July 2nd, the Virgin Mary did appear to them. And she appeared to them, they were playing over in an area called Los Pinos, the Pines. just outside the village. And then she appeared to them perched up in one of the branches where they could see it. And again, the same thing happened. They fell into ecstasy. They were looking straight up, and um, she she appeared to them. They started talking. It's interesting because in the many conversations that continue to take place, um, the girls, in their diaries and in some of the things that they publicize or they were given permission to publicize, um, they reference the discussions that they had with the Virgin as talking to their mother, as talking to a friend. So they were just having conversations. And she would give them little tidbits of information that were coming up, that were going to be prophesized. And she would ask them to make sure that everybody would learn about them. And sure enough, they continued to have those apparitions. And so the Virgin mentioned that there would be one major message that she would be revealing in a few months, which she did later in September. And I'm sorry, in October. And so they kept having these conversations, and the word spread throughout the town and throughout the region, the local region, that these girls were having these apparitions. And the families, the priests, the local police authorities, they would interview and talk to these girls to see what it was that they were seeing, because it was obvious when they fell into ecstasy, they would be playing in different parts of by themselves. They'd be at home. They would be maybe sometimes even in school, and all of a sudden they would get up and all from different places walk together and end up in the same place. They would fall to their knees, harsh fall on their knees on rocks, because this was an old town. Everything was a rock, a stone path. And when they were in ecstasy, they were looking straight up into the sky and with their heads way back. And the local people would try to move their heads, and they couldn't. And they would when the word started to spread, and the media, some of the reporters would come out, and news, TV, etc., and they would flash lights in front of their eyes, and their eyes would be looking straight up. They would not be. There would be nothing, and no outside stimuli could force them to change. Sometimes people would try to move their heads, and their heads were like statues. Doctors came in to 2 or 3 months into this, when they had several apparitions, and the word was spreading, and more people were coming. Couple of the local doctor called for another doctor coming from Santander, which this is in the region of Santander in the north part of Spain, the city of Santander and the region of Santander. And the doctor would put needles, stick needles into the arms, and the girls wouldn't feel it. And in fact, the needles would not go in. It was like pinching a statue. Remember, this all started in June 18th, 1961. So 5 months later, October 18th, 1961, the Virgin told them that she would be delivering a major message. And so more and more people kept coming to see them, because apparitions were taking place like every other day, 2 or 3 days. There were 2 major periods of these apparitions. The first period, for about 2.5 years, between June 1961 and January 1963, about 200 apparitions per year. So a total of about 500 apparitions took place with these girls, and documented. Witnesses would see them walking, falling. Interesting things would happen, such as sometimes they would fall on their knees, they'd be praying, and all 4 of them would be praying together the rosary, or they would then be seen speaking, each one individually. with the Virgin Mary. The people that were trying to investigate them would put phones to try to, not phone recorders, to try to record what they were saying. And messages were slowly being disseminated of what the girls were saying back and forth with the Virgin Mary. Nobody could hear what the Virgin Mary was saying, but they could hear the comments that the girls were making. And it was obvious that they were having a conversation with someone. And all this time looking straight up with their heads way back. And then, yes.
I have a question. I want to do a couple of vocab checks for those that don't know. Apparitions. I know it kind of explains itself, but can you define apparitions?
Okay, so an apparition is where there's a visual encounter between the Virgin Mary, Jesus, God, or some other, the angels, the archangels, some saints. The apparition is where there's a visual encounter between the individual and the apparition, what's called the apparition. The apparition, again, could be a saintly figure. And so these are visual events that take place. Okay?
And then
so they're
go ahead.
Okay. Well, and I was just going to say, yeah, so the apparition, they're seeing something. Nobody else is seeing it, but they're seeing the apparition, and they're seeing, in this case, is the Virgin Mary, Our Lady of Mount Carmel, and she's having a conversation with them. And so it's obvious when people are looking at this that this conversation is taking place.
So another vocab check is ecstasy. I know you've tapped on it, but can you wrap it up for us? And I know that through history, there's been many types of states of ecstasy, but if you could wrap it up.
So when somebody falls into ecstasy, they become disconnected from all surroundings, from everything around them. And it becomes obvious that they are in a state of ecstasy because of that, because their physical being and their visual disconnects from anything around them. And then they are connecting at that point, they are connecting with their apparition. And this has been documented in thousands of cases, throughout history when these ecstasies take place. So in their case, when they would, and there were a number of incidents, many incidents, and let me explain them, take a few minutes to talk about them. Mm-hmm. They would fall on their knees, and suddenly they would get up, all of them together, and whether they were together, all four, sometimes they were two together, sometimes they were three, they would start walking backwards and forwards, looking straight up, because the apparition, the Virgin Mary, would lead them, move them around the town. And the theory behind that is that she was letting all the people, all the witnesses that were there, recognize that something supernatural was taking place. Something supernatural, because they were looking straight up, not seeing where they were going, and they could walk up the path full of rocks, walk into the church, come out of the church, walk backwards rapidly, and witnesses would document that they seemed like they were walking on air, because the ground was so uneven that people that were following them were falling down, and yet they were walking very smoothly from one place to another. So that's one of the what is being called some of the little miracles that have been taking place there. Another one is that when they were people started to give them things like rosaries for the Virgin Mary to bless them. They would put them into a box of rosaries, wedding rings, things that people wanted the Virgin to bless. And they would put them in a box. The girls would pick them up and show them to the Virgin. She would bless them, kiss them in some cases. And then the girls individually looking straight up. And you have a whole crowd of people all around them, hundreds of people all around them. The girls would get up and start walking, looking straight up through the crowd, and find, without knowing the individuals, they would find the individual to which the ring, the rosary, the object that was being blessed would belong to, and they would deliver it to that individual. If it was a rosary, when they would deliver it to the individual, they would raise it so that the person would kiss it and then leave it with them. There are a number of very well documented cases where somebody was struggling with their marriage, and the wife took the wedding ring of the husband. The husband didn't know this, but they went to the place, and she put it into the box. And so after it was blessed, the girl took it. I think it was Mariloli. Yeah, Mariloli took it. By the way, quick check. The 4 girls, the names.
Yeah.
Conchita, Mariloli, Maricruz, and Jacinta. Okay? Conchita, Mariloli, Maricruz, and Jacinta. So Mariloli took the ring, walked through the crowd, found the husband, and put the wedding ring in the husband's finger. He had no idea this was taking place, and she didn't know who that person was. So these were all things that were taking place, and all of this, as the theory goes, so that the Virgin could show people that these were all supernatural events taking place, so that people would believe. And yet, people were wanting a bigger miracle, right? So these were all these little miracles taking place. And it's interesting too, because it's also documented that when they would fall into ecstasy and they would be kneeling down, or sometimes they would fall backwards, they would be like statues. Grown men would try to lift them up, and they couldn't move them. That's how heavy they would become. And as soon as the ecstasy was over, they could be moved, they could be picked up, so all these things were taking place while the ecstasies were happening. And again, the idea, it is believed that the Virgin was just sending these messages. And so a lot of research has been done by different individuals about this, but the research, especially in the first few years. Yes.
I have a question. You've been making reference to, sorry to cut you off, but we want to talk about that research. You've been referencing or mentioning this message. Do we know what this message is yet?
Yes. Yeah. I'm going to get to the message in a minute.
All right.
Okay, I'm going to get to the message in a minute.
All right.
So,
suspense.
So the research at the beginning, and the priests and the local bishop, they had their doubts. So the whole thing was sort of put on hiatus, let's say, until the main miracle would come out. And I'm going to explain the miracle in a minute. But this happened about 60 years ago. And sometimes the Lord works in Virgin Mary and with the Lord together. They work in slowly to let things develop. And so about 6 years ago, a priest that was doing his doctoral dissertation by the name of Jose Luis Saavedra actually went way back into the early archives and did an entire research around that. And he was able to conclude from his research that this really did take place. These were supernatural events that were taking place. And in particular, he focused on the message. So let me now tell you about the message. So there were 2 main messages that were delivered. Okay. The first message was only 5 months after the first appearance by the Virgin. It took place on October 18th, 1961. And the girls were told ahead of time that this message was going to be delivered. So that day on October 18th, and they had the date, the town was packed full of people waiting for the message. So the girls were in their homes, and then suddenly they got the call from the Virgin Mary, and they all came running out, fell to their knees in a particular place where they always were falling in and getting some of these messages. And this is the message that they received. It was a very simple message. And so let me read it. We must make many sacrifices, perform much penance, and visit the Blessed Sacrament frequently. But first, we must lead good lives. And here's the kicker now. If we do not do this, a great chastisement will befall on us. The cup is already filling up, and if we do not change, a very great chastisement will come upon us. So the word chastisement, I think people probably understand what that means, but a great punishment is going to fall on us. And so the Virgin is saying, you need to start praying. You need to convert yourself. You need to go to the Blessed Sacrament. You need to do all these things. And incredibly, the people that were there and the priests that were sent by the archdiocese, they sort of not rejected, but they were disappointed with this message. They thought the message was going to talk about a miracle coming up, something major that was going to be taking place. And the Virgin was saying, you must convert, you must pray, everyone must lead a good life. Otherwise, the great chastisement will take place. Now, remember, these were, at the time, girls that were 11 and 12 years old. So she couldn't make a message to be delivered that you and I, maybe as professionals that have gone to university, that we would deliver. These were fairly low-level educated girls. They did go to school and they had an education, but you wouldn't expect them to be delivering a very theological message from the Virgin. But the message was very similar to the message that's delivered in Fatima and even in Medjugorje and in some other places where the apparitions have been taking place. You must pray the rosary, pray for conversions around the world, because otherwise there's going to be a great chastisement. And so that took place in October 1961. As the days continued and through the next year, the girls were given, in order to sort of cement the chastisement, the girls were given in June 1962, so a year after the first apparition, in June 1962, the girls were given a vision of what this chastisement could be. And the girls, all four girls saw it at the same time. They called it the Night of Screams, La Noche de los Gritos, in Espanol, because what they saw were a lot of people screaming, a lot of suffering taking place. And so they saw this, they talked about it, they mentioned it in their documentary, in the documents that they were given the church. And so that's been documented from back then, but the church at the time decided to sort of let it, downplay the whole thing, just keep it in archives. So that was the first message that was followed by another vision of the girls, La Noche de los Gritos, the Night of Screams.
Okay.
And then they continue to have apparitions after that. But then slowly, the number of apparitions started to go down. The Virgin, in one of the apparitions towards the end of 1962, beginning of 1963, the Virgin said that she was very disappointed that her message was not being spread far enough, and that not enough was being done in order to help save lives and get people to convert. And then in January 1963, the apparitions began to diminish greatly. And from mid-1963 through 1965, only two of the girls continued to see the apparitions, Mariloli and Conchita. Conchita being the oldest at the time and the one that seemed to have the closest relationship with the Virgin Mary. She continued to have those connections with the Virgin and the apparitions. So all of this leads into the biggest message, the most important message in 1965, June 18th, 1965. The Virgin, and I'm going to read this because this is a very harsh message. Okay? And maybe one of the reasons why the church has decided to hold off giving this the full blessing until the miracle takes place. And I'm going to talk about the miracle and the special events following this. How are we doing for time?
We're doing good.
Okay. So here's what the second message said. They're very strong. So here's the Virgin. Oh, by the way, it wasn't the Virgin. The Virgin was so disappointed. She gave this message to the Archangel Saint Michael, because the Archangel Saint Michael had been visiting them also back and forth, and they knew it. So the Archangel Saint Michael, on behalf of the Virgin Mary, Our Lady of Mount Carmel, said the following: as my message of the 18th of October, the first message, has not been complied with, and it has not been made known to the world, I am telling you that this is the last one from this apparition. Previously, the cup was filling, now it is brimming over. Many cardinals, by the way, remember, this is a translation from Spanish to English, okay? So I'm giving you the English version. She continues, many cardinals, bishops, and priests are following the road to perdition, and with them, they are taking many more souls. Let me stop there for a second. We didn't know this at the time, and it wasn't well known at the time, but there were a lot of scandals internally taking place in the church at the time. Issues of abuse, issues, child abuse, and a lot of other major issues at the church. And so she is, and some of those were being hidden by cardinals, by bishops. Anyway, so she says, many cardinals, bishops, and priests are following the road to perdition, and with them, they are taking many more souls. Ever less importance is being given to the Holy Eucharist. And this is something that's been going on for the last 60 years. More and more of the turning away from the church by governments, by individuals, even by church people, laity, etc. Ever less importance is being given to the Holy Eucharist, which would turn the wrath of God away from us by our own efforts. If you ask his forgiveness with a sincere heart, he will pardon you. I, your mother, through the intercession of Saint Michael the Archangel, wish to tell you that you should make amends. You are now being given the last warnings, plural. I love you very much, and I do not want your condemnation. Ask us sincerely, and we shall grant your plea. And she closes by saying, reflect on the passion of Jesus. So this was a pretty tough message to deliver. And again, the people were thinking, there were thousands that day, there were thousands of people at the town. The outside the church where the message was read, you could barely, it was just so packed that people could barely move in. And interestingly, there are pictures of Conchita receiving that message. And because it was prophesied that she was going to be receiving that message, the local police officer, remember, this was a small town, the local police officer asked for backup to protect her from the crowd. So there were like 6 or 7 police officers there. The church sent people, all of this, and the town was packed. When she got the message, and from there she went to the church, and and there she wrote the message and read the message to the people there. So that message was pretty harsh. That was in June of 1965. She continued to have a couple of more apparitions, but those apparitions stopped in November of 1965. In those last few apparitions that she had, the Virgin told her that there would be 4 major events that taking place. There would be the world would go through a period of tribulation. It would be followed by a warning, un aviso that the whole world would see. the miracle that I'm making reference about a couple of times, the miracle. And if the miracle and the warning didn't convert people and they continued their evil ways, the chastisement would come. And so the four girls have been told earlier about the miracle, but they had very little information. The only one that was given more information was Mariloli at first, but then Conchita was given the full content of what the miracle would be. So let me get into those four events: the tribulation.
Okay, I was about to ask.
Yeah, the tribulation, the warning, the miracle, and the chastisement. Okay. Okay, so the tribulation would be a period of great suffering will take place. In fact, many, if you follow, I don't know if you know Father Chris Allar from Marian, the Marian Center. He says that we're in the period of tribulation right now. When you think about COVID, some of the things that took place, or the lockdowns, the way the world is changing, even the war in the Ukraine, war breaking up in many parts of the world, the conflicts of all time. He says he believes, and many believe, that we're in the period of tribulation right now. We don't know how long that tribulation will last. We need to continue praying, but that's the tribulation period to tribulation. The Virgin said that it will come when the church and the offering of the Holy Eucharist will be at the point, almost at the point of perishing. The church is going to be going through a major trial. So the church going through a major point of perishing, and the church going through a major trial. I don't know if you've been following that, what's going on. A lot of bishops are against bishops. Bishops talking about around the world that we need to be very clear that abortion cannot continue the way it is, that Catholics who approve of abortion or turn their face against abortion are not really being good Catholics. And then you have other bishops and cardinals that are saying, no, don't be so harsh. We need to open up our arms. We need to let people into the fold of the church. And there's a lot of strife going on right now in the church because of some of those things that are taking place. Some governments are even codifying into law not only abortions, but euthanasia, other things that go against the teachings of Christ and God. So the Virgin Mary says that this trial, by the way, is going to be led by communism. That's what she told the girls back then. They didn't know really what communism was, but she told them this trial is going to be pushed and led by communism. Communism has taken different forms around the world today. It may not be what we knew 20 years ago, but it's still there. And in fact, the Virgin has said that Russia will have a major part in it. So that's the tribulation period. Then comes, at some point, there's going to be a warning, un aviso. We know that this warning is going to take place sometime, probably like within the next 20 years. Why do we know this? Because Conchita announced that the Virgin Mary has revealed to her that she would know the date of the miracle, and she would be having to announce the miracle 8 days before the miracle happened. But the warning comes 12 months within a year of the miracle. So the miracle, Conchita is going to be announced. By the way, Conchita is my age, 71, 72 years old. So yeah, I know I look younger, but that's so she's my age. And so she's going to be announcing the miracle. And she has announced that within 12 months before, el aviso, or the warning. By the way, the warning, I think, is much more like the notice. El aviso, the notice to the world, the warning to the world, is going to be taking place. Okay.
12 months after.
12 months before the miracle.
12 months before the miracle.
So will come the warning.
The warning that she will reveal to us.
She will reveal to us the miracle. Okay. 8 days before the miracle takes place, she's going to tell us about the miracle.
Okay.
But
And
we
then
know, she has said that the warning is going to come within 12 months before the miracle to let people prepare themselves mentally, spiritually for the miracle.
Okay.
To get them all to convert. What she has said is that this warning is going to let people see their state, the state of their heart, their state of their spiritual being with God. And so people will see their sins. They're going to see what they need to do to convert. This is what the warning will tell them. And everybody's going to see it. It's going to be at the same point, the same time, all around the world. If you're sleeping, it will come to your mind while you're sleeping. If you're awake, apparently the whole world is going to stop for about 15, 20 minutes. It's a very short duration of time, but everybody will see it. Everybody is going to see it and understand what the state of their soul is at that point. Okay? The warning. And then comes the miracle. Okay, so the miracle, Conchita has seen the miracle, and she has said that it's going to be the greatest miracle that Jesus has performed. Now, if you think about Jesus resurrecting from the dead as something that we believe in, it's a huge miracle, and some of the miracles that he performed while he was alive, and for Conchita to say this is going to be the greatest miracle that Jesus has performed. Now, she didn't publicize this. She said this to the local priest, and she said this to her mother, and a couple of other people, who then documented in the church archives what Conchita had said. That this is, and now that's come out. That she said it will be the greatest miracle. In this, she said, as a result of this miracle, people are going to be so impacted that millions of people that were not Catholic, not even Christians, would convert to Christianity. Even Russia, she said, would convert back to Christianity. Remember, Russia used to be a very Christian country into the 1800s when the Tsars were, the revolution, the Bolshevik Revolution took place, and they were through the Tsar, and then they became agnostic, etc. Atheists, actually. And so Russia would convert back to Christianity. Now, she also said that many people would not accept the miracle, that they would push it away, that the media be in control. This is her saying this back 60 years ago, that reports would be to get people to not believe in what they saw, that not believe in the miracle. And when we look today at the way that our media is controlling a lot of the message, manipulating a lot of our message, regardless of the politics that you may believe in, I think we can all understand, this is something that I teach, that at the university, that the media can control the messaging that the public sees, manipulate public opinion based on messaging. Okay, now that takes us to the end, to the chastisement. What she has said is that if people don't convert, if the evil ways continue, and if the evil forces continue, then a great chastisement would come upon the world. And that's a very similar message to the message that we got from Fatima. And, Fatima actually was more about praying and conversion, not so much about the chastisement, but she did make reference, the Virgin, about great punishment if people didn't convert. Then we have Garabandal in the 1960s saying the same thing. The chastisement would come if people don't convert. And now in Medjugorje, we know that very similar message is being given, as well as in other Marian apparitions. There are other Marian apparitions that are popping up all over the world, and in Latin America, a couple of places, in Africa, in Japan, in Europe, and the same message keeps coming up. It's sort of like a crescendo of messaging that people need to convert. And so this is Garabandal in a very brief summary. I mean, I do encourage people to start reading more about Garabandal. You know, the events that took place when these girls were getting their having their apparitions directly with the Virgin Mary and with the Archangel Michael. These events, now that more and more research has been done and taken place, they were supernatural events. I mean, there's no doubt that some of the things that were taking place, the way the girls could take a ring and not knowing who the person was in the crowd and go right into the crowd looking straight up, not even, because you could say, well, maybe it was kind of fakeish, and maybe they knew the person. That person was immersed in the middle of the crowd, and they were looking up without falling. They would walk back and put the ring in that person's finger. I mean, if that is not a sign that somebody was leading her, and we know that the Virgin was leading Mariloli in that case, Conchita and others, she was leading them to that person where they were looking straight up. And so all these supernatural events were taking place so that the Virgin could show people back then that this was for real. And yet, many people did believe. I mean, there are thousands and thousands, maybe millions of people, some in Spain, some in different parts of the world, that have become very familiar with Garabandal, me being one. I only became familiar with Garabandal after I started my research on Paul in Spain, and I became aware that this happened in Spain. So many people are now understanding this message. And so, in conclusion, to sort of close it out, because I think we're probably running out of time, in conclusion, we have that there will be a period of tribulation. Some believe that period of tribulation has started. Some of the things that are taking place around the world. We will then, at some point, get a warning, un aviso, where we will see our internal soul, the sins that we committed, and the things we need to do. Yes.
Is the aviso that? The warning that we get is the revealing of our state.
Yes, of our state. The aviso, the revealing our state in our heart, our condition, spiritual condition with Christ, and what we need to do to continue to be in grace with God. So we're going to be given this aviso. Then within 12 months, the miracle.
That she will reveal to us 8 days before.
8 days before.
Okay.
8 days before. Yeah. So 8 days before. And the miracle is going to be seen by everybody around the world. If you are in Garabandal, you're going to see it in person, but it's going to be something that everybody will see around the world. Some folks are saying that it will also be seen in Medjugorje, that it will be seen in Fatima, that it will be seen wherever the Virgin has appeared. That'll be the miracle. And if after that, we don't know how long after that, but if after that, the world continues its evil ways and more and more punishments on people, more control of people, and etc., and not praying back to God, that the chastisement will follow. And then after the chastisement, what the Virgin has said, there will be a period of peace. There will be many martyrs, because good people are going to pass away during the chastisement. But those that remain will be people of God, people that have been in good state with God. So if you confess your sins, if you're in a good state of grace, you will make it through, and then there will be a period of peace. Some people believe it will be, according to biblical scriptures, that it will be about 1,000 years. And then after that, who knows? But, it will be in a state of grace with God. So this is all about Garabandal. It's amazing when you look at the whole history, that it really does look like it was all legitimate, that it really did take place, where natural events took place. And it seems like the prophecies are moving in that direction. Our life, our world is moving in the direction of the prophecies. So lots there to unpack.
Very interesting about this, the Garabandal and Our Lady, from Mount Carmel. And this has been very, very eye-opening, very educational.
And Alejandro, and there is a movie, you can actually see it online.
Yes.
En español es Garabandal, solo Dios sabe. In English, Garabandal, only God knows. Right? Because we're still waiting for some of the prophecies, but you can see the movie. It was pretty well done. And you can get it online on YouTube. It's available on YouTube. It was made 3 years ago.
We'll put the link. We'll put the link in the show notes.
Okay. Good.
Fernando, this has been great. Thank you again for coming back on the show and sharing with us your recent research. And I thank you for putting in the time, because I know that's a lot of people struggle with that. They want to learn more, earn their faith, and they either can't find the time, or they don't put the time, or they're doing other things with their lives, But Thank you for putting in the time and doing some research and coming on the show and sharing it with us.
It was great. I really appreciate giving me the opportunity, and thank you for doing it.